Okay, we're going to start today. We're going to start with the ALST, and then we will go to the EAS. Now, the ALST throws a lot of people. There are two parts of it that are particularly difficult. One is the reading passage and how it's organized, and the other is the essay. What I've done on the columns, the left-hand column, that's the instructions for the test. On the right-hand column, I have translated the instructions into English so that you can know what they mean. One of the problems on these tests is also vocabulary. I was looking at the 8th grade math. Now, I always thought that in math, you solve equations. But in the Pearson test, you solve functions. Now, I figured out that equation and function were really the same things. But if you're not certain about that, and you see the word function, your teacher used the word equation, you don't know what they're asking. So again, the key is we need to translate instructions into English. For example, they have selected response questions, what we always call multiple choice. Now, the test consists of multiple choice questions and document comparison questions where you have to briefly compare two passages with charts and graphs. You also have to write a longer essay discussing the reading passage and the verbs. Now, this is very important. There are 40 multiple choice questions and they count a penny apiece. 40 questions, 1 point each. The passing score is a 60. That means you can get every multiple choice question wrong and still pass this test. That means don't get stuck on the multiple choice because it's the essay that is key. What happens is people get bogged down in the reading passages, they get squeezed on the essay on the ALST, they don't have time to finish the essay, and that's where all the points are. So on the reading passages, you just go through them. And if you don't know the answer, skip it, you go back at the end. But you don't get stuck on a reading passage, because each question is only worth 1 point. Passing score is 520. That's just done to confuse you. 100 on the test is 600. A 0 on the test is 400. There's a range of 200 points. 120 gives you 520. That means you only got to get a 60 on the test. That's what you have to keep in mind. I got to get a 60. In baseball, if you're a 300 hitter, like Derek Jeter, and you go to the Hall of Fame, that means you made out 7 out of 10 times. Nobody has to get 100 on this test. You just have to get 60. That means you got to hit your pitch. You got to get your questions right. Don't worry about the ones you don't know. Okay. There are 40 multiple choice questions, 2 brief document summaries. Each document summary counts 20 points. In a minute, I'm going to show you how you write the document summary. When I taught high school social studies, we used to teach the kids how to write a bullshit essay. How to write the essay if you don't know the answer. We're going to go over how you write the essay if you don't know the answer. This is going to count the 6 to 8 passing. You have 3.5 hours to complete the test, which is more than enough time, so you need to relax. The worst thing is if you panic. You can use your time as you wish, but they expect the multiple choice questions to take up about half of your time. So you get 3.5 hours, figure an hour and a half on the multiple choice, hour and a half on the essay, half hour to go back and check. Okay. They're not looking for the right answer on the multiple choice. In the multiple choice, they're looking for the answer that they did in the reading passage. The answer is always in the reading passage. I will show you that in a minute. You have to read the passage carefully first. Look at the choices, but I recommend you don't look at the answers. Look at the choices, don't look at the answers. Instead, after you read the question will say, go back to paragraph 2. Go back to paragraph 3. Go back to the paragraph after you've read the question, find the answer, then go to the choices. The first time I went through the test, I read the question, I looked at the answer, so that's the answer. I was wrong, because it wasn't the answer in the passage. Read the question, go back and look at the passage, find an answer, and then look at the choices, and you will get it. If you still don't get it, say, stupid question, I'm going to the next one. All right. You explain in the constructive response, the essay. You explain the argument, you evaluate the specific claims in the reading passage, you want you to evaluate the logic of the argument, and they also want you to use evidence. Now your essay must be 200 words long. They say the essay can be between 100 and 200 words. Well, that's true. If you only want 50 points on the essay, you only write half the words. And if you want all the points on the essay, you have to write all the words. So they will accept an answer that is 100 words, but they won't give you full credit. You want your credit on your essay, you got to write 200 words. What I recommend on the writing of the words is this. Do not worry about the words. Answer the question. Once you've answered the question, look at how many words you wrote. If you have not written 190 words, then you add words. If you've written too many words, I think the computer will stop you. It means you have to edit to create more space. But you don't say, I have to write 200 words. You say, I have to write the essay, then you check your words, and either you enlarge it or you contract it. That's easier. If you're worrying about writing a certain number of words, that's where you get nervous. Now, in the question, they're asking you, what does the author claim? They're not asking you, what do you think? Again, it's very, very specific. What is it that the author claims? And then you evaluate the author's claim by seeing if they have sufficient evidence. So it's a very, very structured essay. Again, you're not asking your opinion. You're asking, what did the author say? But you must provide evidence from the essay to support what you say the author says. In your conclusion, you have to identify which author you thought was most convincing and why. Now, there's no wrong answer. You could argue either one. That's where your opinion goes. But again, you must provide evidence. There are seats over there. Don't use quotes or paraphrases. That wastes words. You can only stick 200 words in there. So you want to refer to the evidence, but don't have an extended quote. So if you have an extended quote, then you're wasting your words. Okay. The second part of your essay must also be 200 words. You got to write your answer, then check the number of words. Make it longer or shorter as necessary. Now in the second essay it says, how does the information in the chart or graph support or refute the arguments made in the reading test? Now this is always the question. Whatever the chart is, whatever the graph is, it's always the same question. You must provide specific examples. Now that means you're going to have to look at the chart or the graph. My impression, they generally tend to be pie graphs or they'll be bar graphs. They're not that hard. But what happens is people get nervous again. They're not hard. You have to look at them carefully, what's in the graph. Now, you have, for the last part in your extended response, you have to clearly, accurately, and logically explain complex ideas and information from the sources, citing specific evidence. Spelling and grammar count. They always say spelling and grammar don't count, and it has to be written in standard English. Well, if it has to be written in standard English, that means spelling and grammar count. The reader is going to react to the fact that you're not using standard English, so you want the reader to like you, to like what you wrote. That means when you're done, you must edit. You can't just say, I'm exhausted, I'm going home. Say, my last step is I have to edit. And there's a trick to edit. What most of us do is now we use spell check. So you get like two mixed up because this stupid computer doesn't know which two to use. What we have, the other problem we have is if you just edit silently, you have a tendency to read what you wanted to write, you read what you thought you wrote. But if you read it aloud softly to yourself, it does two things. It slows you down, and you actually hear what you wrote. You say, wow, that's not what I meant to say, and then you can correct it. So what I recommend is that to yourself, but like, you know, with your lips moving, you have to pull your lips. Read it aloud very softly. That will help you to pick up errors. Now, one of the things I used to tell the high school students, if you do not know how to spell automobile, that's okay. Write car. Car counts the same as automobile, and it's easier to spell. When in doubt, change, use a simple word. You know, what is the affect or the effect? I don't know. What was the impact? That I know. The impact. Judge, for this test, you want to just correct that. I know Maureen is saying, no, they should know the difference. But that's not the point on this test. The point of this test is passing. Right? What was the impact? Eliminate the problem. All right. Now we have the essay guide. Before we look at that, are there questions or comments, thoughts, or complaints? Like you like the cookies, the brain. Questions or comments? Yes.
So the essay is actually looking at 3 parts?
Yes.
And it's always the same type of essay?
It's always the exact same essay. What they do is they change the passage, but it's the same form. It's always a debate. The sample one is on climate change and the impact of ethanol on climate change. So it's always, they may have one on carbon emissions or on, you know, it's going to be something relatively neutral. And the idea is you're going to have a speaker on one side, a speaker on the other. One of the sides is going to use evidence, one of the sides is going to assert without evidence. Then what will happen is you're going to have a circle, a pie chart, or a graph that will provide evidence that supports one of them. And it's always that formula.
So it's 200 words on the passage, 200 words on the pie chart,
And then 600 words as a final analysis.
So your whole essay breaks down on words?
It's going to be 3 different essays.
3 different essays.
3 separate essays. Yes. All right. Now, let's take a look at the essay study guide. Essay is worth 60 points. It is the key to passing the ALST. The assignment is always use passage A and B to respond to the following assignment. In a response of 100 to 200 words, or you're writing 200 words, identify which author presents a more compelling argument. So, compelling is important. We're not talking about accurate. We're not talking about right and wrong. Compelling means more convincing. So, you might be convinced by B. She might be convinced by A. You're not right or wrong. It's which one you find more compelling. However, it's which you need to cite the evidence that you find compelling. Now, so you're going to identify, I think it was A. And then it is a compelling argument because of this evidence. Your response must outline the specific claims made in each passage. In passage A, the author says 1, 2, 3, 4. In passage B, the author says A, B, C, D. You must very quickly outline what they say. Then you have to evaluate the validity, the relevance, the sufficiency of evidence. Is the evidence, does it address the question? They may have, there was give you an example. On the ETPA research piece, they're very unhappy with me. They cited evidence to support how these standards are valid. But the evidence they cited was from the National Teacher Certification process. And I said, the National Teacher Certification process was A, experienced teachers, and B, people who did it by choice. That is not compelling or valid evidence that beginners who are being compelled to do TPA will benefit in the same way. So what you're going to do is you're going to say, is the evidence valid? Is it relevant? Does it actually discuss what you're talking about? And last, is it sufficient? Each of the two documents. And you're going to include examples, but not extended quotes because you don't have enough words. Your response should be written for educated adults. You don't have to use technical language. You don't have to be an expert on it. They don't expect you to be an expert. It's not going to be that hard. And it must be written, edited, American English. Those of you who went to British schools, where you have those, they always put a U where it doesn't belong. That labor is L-O-B-O-U-R. That's the L-O-B-O-U-R. That's only a couple of years ago. No. If you went to an English school and you start labor with you, believe me, you'll find it testing. All right. Sample response to assignment. What is the sample response? A couple of things. The answer in the sample response begins, the author of passage A contends. Every one of you will begin your essay by saying, the author of passage A contends. That's the way you do it. Then what you do is you put down what they contend. Now, you'll notice I put italics in the last sentence. Because in the answer, the sample answer, it says, although the author lists other factors, this evidence is not sufficient. Every one of you is going to have a paragraph, and it's going to start, and it's going to say, the author of passage A contends, and it's going to end for one of the paragraphs saying, although the author lists other factors, this evidence is not sufficient. That's your concluding sentence. In the second one, the main argument in passage B is going to end, to support these claims, the author provides relative data, the argument appears sound. So one of them is going to be insufficient, the other one is going to be sound, the opening is going to be identifying the passage, and the middle is going to list their arguments. It is always the same formula. They are not calling for creativity, they're not calling for genius. This is about following directions. That's it. Okay. Assignment, that's just giving you 20 points. You only need 6 to pass, and we just gave you 20 points. Now you only need 40 to pass. Okay, assignment 2. That's a little bit harder because that requires you to understand the graph. It says use passage B and the graph to respond to the following assignment. In 200 words, explain, not identify, but you have to explain how the information, the pie chart, can be integrated with the author's central argument about the impact of converting corn to ethanol in passage B, or whatever they said in passage B. How is the information in the pie chart going to be integrated to support the argument in passage B? All right. You must now explain, and you must use specific information from the pie chart. Now this is interesting. It could support passage B, or it could counter passage B. The pie chart might not agree with passage B. You have to decide, is this supportive or is this counter to? Include examples that support your explanation, again, for an educated adult in editing. The final piece, 40 points, this is the harder part. But again, you don't have to deal with 40 points. If you did well in those first 2 essays, and you got half of the multiple choice questions right, you've already passed. That's the thing. Don't panic. If you hit your pitch, you pass. On this one, it says, assignment, this is the sample answer to 2. Again, it starts off, the information in the pie chart provides strong support, mild support, contradicts. But in the very first sentence, you're going to lay out what you're going to be arguing. It shows, it estimates, it certainly will rise. Although the charts show the decline, it will nevertheless have a negative impact. So these are some of the kinds of words you're going to use. Their words, use their words. Again, in the final one, use A and B in the graph to respond to the following assignment. Should the production of corn ethanol in the United States be expanded or reduced? That's an opinion question. First, we're not opinion question. You basically explain what they said. Now is where you're going to lay out your opinion. So you're going to decide, yes, it should be expanded. No, it should not be expanded. Now, you're going to use the information from the passages and the graph. You can, or even if the graphs tend to support one or the other, you're not obligated to take that position. You can take either position. It's easier to take the position that the graphs take, because it lends itself to that, but you're not required.
My question is, are we being evaluated in part based on how well we make the argument, or simply on how well we write it?
Okay, in this case, you're being evaluated how well you make the argument. They're looking at, are you using evidence to support your statements? Is it valid? Is it relevant? And is it clear? Remember, that's what Common Core is. They're supposedly aligning this with Common Core. In every class, whatever we are teaching kids to take a position and support with evidence from the text. So yes, they are looking at our ability to support the evidence to the text. Can we do the things that we are requiring our students to do? It's a very good question. Again, you must have a fully developed argument. If you only have 400 words, just give them other examples. There's multiple examples, and another example is, and another example is, and up to 575 words, and the final example is. You fill out your words. All right. I want to skip the reading passage and go take a look at continue with the essay.
Alan,
Yes.
question, are all 3 essays 200 words, 200 words, 600 words on the same topic?
Yes.
It's one topic,
One topic.
whatever that topic might be?
Yes. One topic, whatever that topic is. And always, passage A will take one position, passage B will take another, and the chart or graph, it may be on immigration. What is the impact of immigration? What is the impact of unemployment? What is the impact of the stimulus package? You don't have to know anything other than the information they are providing you. This is a test. See what happens again. I don't know anything about this. You don't have to know anything. I don't know what ethanol is. I go to the gas station, it says 10% ethanol. You don't have to know what ethanol is. They tell you what it is in the passage. That's the key. Don't get nervous. The answer is there. You just have to find it. Let's take a look.
Just real quick, yeah, and so the 3 essays together are
60 points. Those 3 essays together pass, where you could do the short answer. I'm not recommending it.
I don't know whether everybody else knows this, but what are the conditions of the test? How is it given?
Well, again, you're in a computer lab at Pearson VUE. And again, one of the key things is you don't want to be late. So you want to know where it is and how to get there. Rush hour, you want to get there a few minutes early. Now, my understanding is you're not allowed to have food. But you are allowed to go to the bathroom. And if you have a piece of gum, sure. You are allowed to go, just have it on the rack, so you can't see we're reading Joe Bazooka information. But I don't know if they still have Joe Bazooka food. I had to stop chewing gum because I had dentures. It's old age problems. The other thing is, you know how to do isometric exercises. You could sit there on the computer and go like this. Just as long as you don't punch the person next to you. They don't like it tough. You're allowed to stretch. If you gotta go for a walk, I gotta go to the bathroom. You walk. So do what you need to do to reduce the stress. That's very, very important. But everything is computerized. I don't even think they have the paper tests anymore. You do?
For a CSA.
For the CST,
Yeah.
but not for this.
Not for that.
This is all computerized. So you want to take a look at where it says sample construct response out of that means essay. Yes.
Because I'm not sure if you mentioned this when you were discussing proofreading.
Yes.
So the program that we are typing, it's not.
Yes.
And there's no word processing being done, so any grammatical or spelling checks we're doing ourselves.
Yes, you have to do it yourself. And what I recommend is you read it aloud, softly, so as not to disturb the other people and they don't get too crazy.
Does it tell you the number of words? You have to actually count it.
No, it tells you the words.
It tells you how many words.
Does it freeze at 200? Or does it let you go a little past? I think it lets you go a little past. But then you gotta edit back. All right. Let's take a look at the essay so you get a sense of what they give you in the passage. So, passage A, promoting the U.S. economy and energy independence. And what they do is they list all the information still. You don't have to know anything about ethanol. It's all clear. It is the consumer. Passage B argues that it's not really useful. And again, all the information is here. This is a test on whether you can make a clear thematic statement supported with evidence. The evidence is here. The thing that people have had more difficulty on are the charts and the graphs. But again, part of the problem is that people are not accustomed to it. You don't work with it that much. So you see one, all of a sudden you get nervous. But if you look at it now, you realize it's not that complicated. On the global and the U.S. regions, this is the level of the chart and graph that 10 to 11th graders are expected to be able to do.
So you actually have a physical copy of it that you can refer back to, or is the test on?
It's all on the computer.
So you never, so if you want to look at the charts
You
and
can
then
look-
compare
you
it
can
to
go
the
back.
passage, or you have to have that different
You can go
screens?
back and look at different screens, I believe.
And there's no like paper you jot notes or anything?
No. Can you jot notes on your screen?
There's like a board, they give you like a white, so you can jot notes on like what.
If you look at just the first 2005, 2006 relation, ethanol use is small relative to overall gas use, 3.5% ethanol, 96.5% gas. 2016, ethanol has gone from 3.5 to 7.5. So ethanol has roughly doubled, but the reality is it remains a tiny fraction of use. So I'm looking at this, it doubles, but it's still, after more than 10 years, it's still very small. Also, if you look at the right hand, ethanol accounts for a large and growing share of corn use. You see 14% of corn used for ethanol, and the bottom, 31%. So we have a very large percentage of corn is now being, a third of the corn is being used for ethanol, and it still is a fraction of our fuel consumption. As a matter of fact, if they used all the corn for fuel, it would still be less than 20%. So what that suggests to me is that the corn is not really an answer to fuel. But if we use all the corn for fuel, there won't be corn for other things. Tacos, corn chips, pig feed, chicken feed. But pig feed and chicken feed are actually more important. Corn syrup, like sodas. You know, the price of everything will go up because they're using it all for gas. And it's still not getting very much gas. So what you want to do is, before you write answer 2 and 3, you want to look at this carefully and figure it out. That's the key. You have to look at it and figure it out. Don't start writing and looking. Take 10 minutes and say, wow, we're not getting much gas out of here, and they're using all the corn. Take 10 minutes, figure it out, it'll be much easier to write this. Let's go back, and now here, they give you, these are the sample essays. Look at them. That will also help you look at the structure. I now want to look at the reading passage, because I hate Pearson reading passages. Pearson hates me, so it's like, okay. The first time I looked at it, I was a wise guy, so I just looked at the answers, the choices. I said, I'll just look at it, I don't have to read the passage. And I got wrong. I said, wow, I must be losing it. And I said, no, I'm right, they're wrong. The problem is, they're not asking me what's the best answer. They're asking me what's the answer in the message. It's a reading test. It's not a knowledge test. You don't have to know anything. You have to know it. For example, we're going to skip to the choices. Now, you'll notice this passage has absolutely nothing to do with teaching. And that's what I'm saying, you don't have to know anything. It's just a passage about Gertrude Stein, who I would venture to say 90% of you never heard of, which is why they use it. Because they don't want you to know anything about her. You know of Gertrude Stein? No. 90% of you don't. Other than the professors, does anybody here know who Gertrude Stein was? No, it's done on purpose. They don't want you to know who Gertrude Stein is. Knowledge gets in the way. What they want you to do is to read the passage and answer the question. Let's go to question number 1. In paragraph 1, the repetition of the phrase well-rounded, prosperous, emphasized. You gotta go look at paragraph 1 and what well-rounded, prosperous, emphasized. They tell you where to go. And then every one of the questions is the same. They will tell you in paragraph 3, in paragraph 5, the key to this test is following directions. My problem is I knew who Gertrude Stein was, I knew what well-rounded was, and I got the answer wrong. Because in paragraph 1, well-rounded, which I always read as sophisticated, that's not the answer. The answer is predictable. I never used well-rounded that way, but that's how they used it in the text. That's the key. How did they use it in paragraph 1? And they tell you the paragraph 3. So what you want to do is read it through so you know what it's about. Don't worry if you've never heard of any of these people. It's not a test of what you know. You go to the question, it will tell you where to look. And that's where the answer is. And all the reading passages are the same. It's always about going back to the paragraph that they tell you. Yes? I didn't copy them all. I don't have enough time. They're all online in the package. You go to the state. It's an hour long. There are 40. There are 40 questions, so I think there are 8 passages, 1 question passage.
It's all the same setup.
All kind of same setup. It's always, you gotta look at paragraphs 3, paragraph 5. What is the answer in the passage? 8 passages, 5 questions. But that's okay. This again, don't get nervous. They only count a penny apiece. You only really want to get half the right. Get the first 20 right, so I'm not doing the rest. No, don't get it. But you know what I'm saying? You don't have to get them all right. Yes, ma'am.
So they're really no like big idea questions. They just specifically point you to the spot.
Yes. That tell you where to look. That's it. It's a reading test. It's not a knowledge. The EAS is different. And EAS people have trouble with, but the EAS, there are also other things that will help you. So, before we go to the EAS, people have other questions on the ALST.
So where is this lab devoted to test?
It's Pearson View, they're all over.
You put in your address, like you see the closest one, and then you pick it. It's based on, okay, so it's based on the testing center. So you put your address in. You put your address in, it shoots back all the testing centers in your area. You'll pick a testing center, and then based on the test in this testing center, it tells you what dates are open. And then when you click on the date, it tells you what time they're open. And then you pick that and you select and you go in.
Yeah. See, the issue is where they have a computer station available. This testing center has tests for nurses, tests for accountants, has like all these different tests. So what you basically reserve is a computer screen, keyboard, and chair. So that's, you're going to tell you your zip code, and you say, you're going to Garden City. And then you're going to look at Garden City, and you're going to say, what day and time is there a computer screen available for me?
You might have to switch where you're going to get better times. Like that's big. Originally, when I signed up for this test, I was going to go to Farmingdale because that's closest one to me. But Farmingdale didn't really have options. Like their first opening was the end of October. So I decided that if I tried a different one, maybe I have their options. And then you just try a different one, and the entire month was opened up to the other one.
Which one?
Amityville. Amityville has a lot.
This is, I know everybody heard, so let me repeat. You go to Pearson View to sign up for a test. Now, what Tully did is she looked at, first what she did is she looked at Farmingdale because that was the closest location to where she lives. But Farmingdale, a lot of people wanted to go to Farmingdale. So all the nurses wanted to go to Farmingdale. All the accountants, all the pharmacists, they all wanted to take the test in Farmingdale. So Farmingdale did not have good computer times for the next 2 months. So she said, well, let me check the Amityville test center. And she, Mom, no one wanted to go to Amityville. Well, at Amityville, they could get any day and time she wanted. That's the thing. So there's a lot of flexibility. You got to do it on a Thursday. Look at a couple of test centers. Thursday's your day off. Where's there an empty seat on a Thursday? It doesn't make a difference which test you're taking. The computer has all the tests.
The time takes different.
Yeah.
So the testing times that we're going to do it are different. Some tests, like I can't remember which one it was, but one of these two allows you to take the test later on in the day than the other one did.
I also recommend that even if you can take both tests on the same day, only take one test. And the reason for that, at the end of the test, you're going to be spiritually exhausted. And you're going to need to take a break. Because the test is you get so tense, it's so geared up. So my recommendation is, again, schedule different days. Give yourself a couple of days in between so you have a chance to get charged up again. You need to get recharged.
And there is a practice that is developed for it's like $30 or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My recommendation, he said you could pay for a practice test online. Yeah. However, my feeling is that the sample booklet is enough for most people.
What, is that online as well?
Yes, the sample booklet you download online. Look, if you're really anxious, then buy the sample test. Otherwise, go with the sample book. The commercial stuff that they sell, I find to not be useful. One of the problems with the tests, and you all know this person, there's always a person who is a fanatical studier who's studying studies. And they're going to get the sample book, and they can do this, and they're always going to get a very high score. Because that's who they are, and they're just really good at tests. The real issue is for people who don't do quite as well on tests. What will get you over the top? This is not a measure of your quality as a human being. This is not a measure of your ability to be an outstanding teacher. This is just a measure of your ability to pass the test. It's a roadblock. You got to get over it. Do what you need to do without making yourself nuts. That's the key. Yes, in the back, please.
I was going to say online, when I was looking in the sample packet, it's exactly what you printed out. There's no other examples. It
Right.
just has like 8 questions, but there's no other samples.
Right. That if at the end of looking at this you're not comfortable, then you could pay the $30. Now, we want everybody to take these 2 tests as soon as possible. In January and in June, we're going to have an intensive study session. It'll cost $200. We're only going to let people sign up if they fail the test. So if you take the test and you don't pass, you'll be able to register for the intensive study at the University College. We don't want you to pay the 200, we don't want you to take the intensive, we want you to take the test and pass. 80% of you are going to pass it the first time. The others are going to be very close, and if you take it again, we'll pass. We want to be able to concentrate our efforts on people who are having real issues. So get the test done. If you don't pass, if there are real issues, then you can register for the session in January. I don't have the details now, but we'll have it. Other questions about this? I want to get to the EAS, which requires a different approach, and that's important. It's different. A lot of EAS is the same. Multiple choice, brief essays. However, and this is what's tricky, on the EAS, 42 multiple choice questions, but they count for 70 points. On the EAS, the multiple choice questions are the key to passing. On the EAS, you gotta get that right. They're not hard. Again, one of the things that happens on the EAS is people get bogged down in the essay. The essay is actually simple, and I'm going to show you a trick for passing the essay. But the key to the essay is you want to do well on the essay, because if you get a close score, the essay puts you over the top. That's what the essay is for, puts you over the top. Now, this is a shorter test. It's only 2 hours and 15 minutes. That's why the test centers have different time frames. But again, it's a shorter test, so you can relax. Use your time as you wish. They expect the multiple choice questions to take most of your time on this test. Now that's tricky, because a lot of people didn't finish the essay. Everybody who failed because they didn't finish the essay. And we figured out what you have to do. I'll show you that. Now again, this is a test of knowing things. You must be able to identify the rights and teach approaches applicable to each of 3 target groups. And the target groups are diversity, English language learners, and students with special needs. But your answers do not have to be that sophisticated. They have really basic answers.
We suggest taking this test after you take the special learning course. There's a lot of us, we're seniors and we're taking
Yes,
that course.
undergraduates you might as well, because when you
Senior, this January. So,
I gotta tell you, I don't think.
maybe in January before your student team.
I'm gonna say this, but don't quote me.
Okay.
I don't think the SPED 102 will make that much difference on the test.
Okay.
Because the SPED 102 focused a lot on the laws and on the different disabilities.
Yeah.
This focuses much more on teaching approaches. I actually think that for undergraduates, the 151 and the 102, SED 102 will address a lot of it. As a matter of fact, we are now, what we're trying to do is to make sure we address these things in the 101 too, and the 151. Special ed has very specific requirements that the state mandates they include. They're going to be addressing these also, but I don't think you should wait. You know, take the ALST first, take the EAS later in the semester, wait till November. Don't wait till January.
So don't look for any of the tests
Take the ALST now.
now and then wait until.
Take the other one in November. It'll give you a chance to have more of a special ed class. But this way, if you fail, you can take the tutorial in January.
Okay.
And then take a test again in February.
Okay. And you still have to pay the money again. Okay. That's you know.
Do you find out if you pass? No, because they're essays. So how would the student find out if you pass?
A month.
Yeah, everything was a month. It was a month. I don't know if it's changed, I believe it's still one. I think that's what that is.
So for each test,
Yeah. I think we have, you get the score, we get the score the same day. And it's always been a month. Now, this is very important on the EAS. You're not there to have an argument with Pearson. Same, it's 520, you gotta get a 60. You're not having an argument with them. If they suggest a scenario, you can't say that's stupid. That's the scenario you're evaluating. If they say, how would you implement this in a classroom? That's the scenario you're implementing. This is not about having a debate. This is not about whether that kid should have an IEP or not. You're just doing what they ask. One of the things that they're looking for in diversity, ELL, and special needs is sensitivity. And this is the same on the ATPA. The idea is that we must be sensitive to the needs of children. That's the key on this test. Now, my own children will tell you I'm not very sensitive to anything. But on the test, I'm very sensitive, super sensitive. Again, in the reading passages, when they give you a reading passage, they're not looking for the right answer. They are looking for the answer in the passage. So you don't want to have an argument and say, well, in the passage, the answer is B, but I think A is a better answer. You just do mark wrong, and there's no appeal. One of the reasons New York State outsourced the exam to a private company is because the private company doesn't have to listen to appeals. If it was a public test like the Regents exams, then they have an open door, open window kind of thing. Everybody gets to examine. On these tests, no one can check it. Whatever they say, that's it. Don't have an argument. I think there's a passage in the New Testament. Give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and give unto Pearson that which is Pearson's. Okay. Paraphrasing. Something like that. Okay. Your essay must be 200 words long. Write it out. Check the words. Make it longer and shorter. Now, you got to follow directions. Let's look at the essay study guide. One of the things that I recommend, the essay is going to have to address student diversity, you're going to have to address English language learners, and you're going to have to address students with special needs. My recommendation is you decide before you go in a strategy for each of those things, and then whenever they ask, you adapt the strategy you already have. You don't want to be in a position of walking in and say, well, what should I do now? Then you won't finish because you won't have time. So, as we're working with students with special needs, you may have heterogeneous grouping in your classroom. So students who have greater strength can also work with students who are having greater difficulty. If you're working with English language learners, you may decide that you will introduce the text through multiple means. You will have students read it silently, you'll have students read it aloud, you will play a video of an actor reading it aloud, and then after examining the text in 3 different ways, then you will talk about it. That's a good one. If you don't have a video, the teacher could do the dramatic reading. You could be Abraham Lincoln delivering the Gettysburg Address. This is very fun. Some of you, Rory got it right. He extra credit. Some of you need to see the ads for Ancestry.com. And one of them it shows Abraham Lincoln delivering the Gettysburg Address, and the ancestor Henry Miller is taking a photograph of Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
And what's the problem, Roy?
There's no picture of Abraham Lincoln giving the address. It's not, the speaker spoke before the cameraman was set up.
So that person's ancestor didn't get a photo of Abraham Lincoln. Which one of the photos of Abraham Lincoln in Gettysburg Address? But on a Pearson test, he took a picture of it. This is not a test of what's accurate, it's a text of what's there. So again, you can have the kids could silently read the Gettysburg Address. They could read an adapted version of the Gettysburg Address. They could then read it out loud, and then you could have a dramatic reading, and then you could discuss what it means. If you have English language learners, that gives you multiple entry points. If you want to promote ensure student diversity, what you're going to do is select material that exposes kids to different cultural experiences. Maybe they read poems written by different people. Maybe they look at pictures of different people. But what you're going to do on the diversity question is you are going to expose them to multiple artifacts, see, Johnny term, multiple artifacts of different groups of people, because you want every student in the room to feel included. So, those are your three. Everybody's going to do the exact same three. They don't care. The algorithm is going to decide. And if I haven't figured out what an algorithm is yet, but when I do, I will tell you. So we'll do in diversity, we'll use multiple artifacts representing all the different groups. For ELL, we're going to do multiple entry points into the same document. And in special needs, we're going to work in heterogeneous groups so students can support each other in learning. That's it. Get full credit on the essay. Whatever the question is, those are your strategies. Next, the key. If you have your strategies ready before you go in, it's not as traumatic. You'll have time to finish. All right. I went over here the questions. Let's just have a look at the questions and see how it fits. Okay. You first are going to write about the diverse student population. Analyze information provided. They provide the information. Write a response. 200 words in which you identify one issue related to student diversity that Ms. Finnegan should address in her instructional plan. She has to use multiple artifacts. And then you write, everybody's going to have the exact same topic sentence. One issue related to diversity that Ms. Finnegan should address in planning the lesson is, if they change the name on the test from Ms. Smith, Mr. Jones, of course you change it. Can you imagine? They use Jones, everybody uses Finnegan. Okay. In planning a lesson, the fact and opinion is that students, depending on their background, gender, may or may not be familiar with the topic of basketball. So she introduces soccer. Because the World Cup, every nation participates. She could address this issue by allowing students to choose from text written on several different topics that are more familiar to them. And it will be effective in facilitating student learning. Students would have necessary background knowledge of the topic. So one strategy is let this multiple artifacts, and they choose the one they want. That way you ensure that every kid gets to pick one. Now I happen to think it's a stupid answer, because what happens if all the white kids pick the white part and the black kids pick Ranks and Hughes? So the white kids will learn Whitman and the black kids will use. That's not a very effective strategy. As a teacher, I would never do it that way. However, this is not about being a great teacher. This is about answering the question. And what they're saying is you give the kids choices. question number 2. Differentiate instruction by providing an outline of guidelines to students with language difficulty. Here's a strategy they are suggesting is you give them an outline to follow as they read. And then special needs, you give the student assistance separately so the student will be able to participate. Again, they're giving you very specific, very simple. They're not asking you to cite sources. They're not saying, where'd you get this from? It's not complicated. You just have to go in with a menu of things you would do, and then say, I'll use this one. Questions, just on that. On the next page, you have the Miss Finnegan 6th grade class. It's an English class. Again, you could be a music person, you could be a high school physics person. You don't have to know anything. It's not going to be a question about whether you know the English pretty well. It's a question about whether you are sensitive to the needs of English language learners, that you are sensitive to the needs of kids with learning disabilities. Are you sensitive to the needs of diverse populations? It's not about that class. Now, let's take a look at the multiple choice. You're not going to look at the passage because I'm going to pull it out. It's not good. The pattern of interaction in Ms. Finnegan's class suggests that students would benefit the most from which of the following instructional approaches: implementing frequent independent study, providing highly structured learning environment, designing a system of concrete awards, adopting heterogeneous grouping practices. Now, you're going to have to go through it and see what the problem is in the class. It's a diverse class. Some kids are learning, some kids are not. The answer here is heterogeneous because they want to promote interaction between peers. One of the great benefits of heterogeneous grouping is that the stronger kids get a chance to explain. The kids who are grappling with it get it explained multiple times. One of the tricks that I used to use is I would say to the group, and they have heterogeneous grouping, and I make sure I have strong leaders in every group. And I'd say, one student in each group is going to present. I'm going to pick the student who will be presenting for the group. Because they'll always want to pick the one they think is going to be the strongest. And I'm going to pick the student who is having difficulty. And then I'm going to say to the group, your group grade depends on your ability to explain. So you must teach them that. And they did. The funniest thing, this is weird. I'm teaching high school, in New York City High School, called Franklin K. Lang City. And I had these 4 girls on the team. And I tell the class, you have to get 100% passing on the Regents. If you don't have 100%, will not pass you in the class, you can pass the Regents. But not only that, you can't pass the class unless every member of your team passes the Regents. No, I can't. Anyway, it went well for a couple of years because they would really help their teammates against the Regents. Finally, one year, I don't know, like the ALST, they fell the Regents, but like a 56. So these 4 girls come to me, and the 3 girls say, Alan, we understand you can't get a passing grade in the class because Maria didn't pass the Regents. But we want you to know that we're going to prepare her and she will pass it next time. So I said, I have complete confidence in this team. So I'm going to give you all, including Maria, the grade that you earned. But I expect that she will pass the Regents on the next time. She got a 76. They must have beaten me. But they wanted everybody in the team to pass. Maria was the weak link, and they were going to make sure that she did. So that's a really good heterogeneous strategy. The weak link, you're going to have to explain, you're going to have to teach them. And that works in every subject. They may not like it at first, but after a while, it becomes a challenge, and they like the challenge. So again, that's the strategy. It's a standard strategy, it's not a hard one. You just read it carefully, what's the problem in the class, and that's the only answer. Which of the following statements describes the most likely explanation for a student's lack of engagement with the main idea on September 2nd? So you have to go back to her lesson for September 7th. September 7th, today I introduced a large group lesson on identifying meaning and essence point details. For the lesson I chose two relatively brief informational passages. One passage about the U.S. economy, this passage about the legislative system. When I read the passages together, students had questions about the content. Of course, addressing these questions, I could sense students' attention slipping away. Now, it's full whole class instruction. Maybe they need to be broken up into groups. Maybe they need some kind of guiding questions. But in the whole class instruction, when I'm talking about it, I'm losing it. The use of two passages made the activity too long. The students prefer reading passages, literary to informational. The teacher did not incorporate prior student knowledge or provide other appropriate scaffolding. The topic of passage is too similar. And they're saying activating prior knowledge is a research strategy for enhancing student engagement. Again, you don't have to get them all right, you just have to get them. That's what this passage is. Here you have some other sample questions, you have some sample essays. On this one, I gave you more of them because people were more nervous about the EAS. Basically, you're going to get one teacher, questions about her class, or his class, and then you're going to this.
What percentage do you need to pass the year?
You see a 6 of them.
Oh,
Every Pearson test, you just need a 6 of them. I think that's the key. It was funny. It was 1974. New York City used to have competitive exams. You got hired based on your score in the exams. Now what happened was everything was frozen. I finished student teaching. I got my middle school New York City cert license. But the high school exam had been frozen since '69. They didn't offer it again until '74. There weren't any jobs at the time, so I went to graduate school. Because I got my certification as an undergraduate, I got my master's, my contemporary history. And then what happened? I had a teaching assistantship, so I just stayed and went to my doctorate. Took my doctorate, comprehensive exams, not the dissertation. Finished all my comprehensive exams. But while I was doing that, I was working as a substitute teacher. I needed money. And I discovered that I liked teaching. It reminded me how much I liked teaching. So when I finished my comprehensives, they gave the high school teacher's exam. I decided to take the exam and see what would happen. It was a 3-hour multiple choice savage exam where you got hired based on your score. Everybody's obsessing. All my friends are already taking the exam. It's a 3-hour exam, you can't leave for an hour and a half. So at the end of an hour and a half, I left. I went outside to read. Now I had been studying for my doctoral comprehensives for the previous 6 months. And then I went in to take the high school teacher's content exam. So after an hour and a half, I went outside. After 3 hours, all my friends came out. And they said, "What happened? Did you give up?" I said, "No, I actually knew all the answers." Because I had studied for this hard test and I took this test. So this key is, pass fail test. test. You're going to pass because you have a great history teacher. The challenges are so the challenges are so much. Questions about EAS? I want to ask your questions because Anita's teaching the ELA development class. But again, we'll need all the time to go over how to make it better. And when we meet, it goes to your teachers. It's not, it's not like we may only do it today, but we're meeting with the teachers continuously every month. And as we get information, we'll pass it on. Yeah, the content test is very similar. I know, I'm also making a history content test because that's my student taking that. And again, it's a Pearson test. The key to the history content test is giving them the answer they want. It's the answer that's in the passage. And also the essays, they're very structured essays. I don't know if all the content exams are this out. But history does. But again, they give you document A, document B, compare, contrast, and summary. It's all about following directions. To get a 300 is hard, but to get a 220, which is passing. Now, something you need to know about the content exams. The content exams are being changed, and they're being rolled out gradually. I know English has already changed. History has not. You have to pay attention to that because if you take, for example, an old English test, but complete your certification or the new guidelines, you got to take the new one. So you have to be careful that you take the test. Like for the in my social studies methods class, I have some people who are finishing certification in May, student teaching in the spring. I have some people who are student teaching in the fall. People who are student teaching in the spring, they should take the old test because that's the one they're being governed. People who are student teaching in the fall, I told them to wait because I don't know what the test is, whether they will have to do the test for the fall group. So that's what you have to check. Okay. I have one last thing and then I'm going to go. I have to take this t-shirt, I'll have to change shirts. No, part of the act. Some of you may know there's a high school teacher in Brooklyn. You got to be able to rap. If you can't rap, you have no street credibility. That's the way it is. So I had to learn to rap. But not only do you have to be able to rap, but you have to have a rapper's name. The kids in Brooklyn where I live, they call me Reese's Pieces. They call me Reese's Pieces because I'm better than Eminem. So,
My favorite game.
So I'm going to bring it all to closure doing Reese's Pieces rap on the test. But to dream the impossible dream, to ace ALST and AS, to design differentiated lessons, to pass the NTPA test, to defy Pearson's unrightable wrong, although they continue to raise the bar, to strive when my brain is too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to teach in New York. I will stay hopeful, I will not balk. To teach all the children without question or pause, to master all the arcane special ed laws. And I know if I'll only be true to this glorious quest, when I student teach, I will always do my best. And the schools will be better for this than a teacher scorned and covered with scars, still strove with their last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable stars. Thank you.